Under the same moon, we share the love. Embracing the differences like hand in glove.
Everything good?
Peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight.
Oh, okay, I'm going live.
Together we shine
Starting in like 5
in each
seconds.
other's
All
light.
right.
And now do we stand in love's pure might, watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. Now do we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to News at Noon. We have a lot to cover today. Shout out to Stella for being here already. Last weekend, we covered so many hot topics. In fact, we discussed a little bit of everything in regards to Epstein, to Ukraine, so much more. Today, we're going to talk about breaking news that's coming out of China. We're going to get right to it, but we're also going to cover some issues happening with Sean Diddy Combs. He might be immediately released. We're going to see what Mark Garrigos has to say about it. Also, a striking unalivement of a young girl by her own mother. We're going to get to all of that today, even the meeting that's happening right now with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. But let's get to it. Let's start off when it comes to China.
China is retaliating against the United States over the approved arms deal with Taiwan, sanctioning 20 major American defense firms. Companies include Northrop Grumman, L3 Harris, Boeing in St. Louis, Gibbs & Cox Incorporated, VSE Corporation, and more. All assets held by these companies in China will be frozen, and they will be banned from doing business in the country. Now, this is the Pentagon sounds the alarm over China's latest military developments to take Taiwan with.
So on this channel, we cover a lot when it comes to investing in the stock market. We're heavy into the stock market. So when things like this happen, it has a dramatic effect. So that's why, even though you could make a lot of money in the stock market, when countries such as China take drastic measures, it could ultimately affect your bottom line if you're invested in any of these companies. So that's why we try to give you the good side and also the bad, so you could get a full understanding of investing.
Brute force. Beijing is rapidly advancing its weaponry and military capabilities to conquer the island by 2027. Joining me now, Gaystone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, China announced it's conducting Justice Mission 2025 drills around Taiwan. That starts tomorrow. There had been a Pentagon report released last week that suggested that there were concerns within the political side of China that maybe 2027 was not the right year to invade Taiwan, but that some in the military believed that maybe it should be sooner. What do you make of this latest move by the Chinese?
This is an intimidation move by China. They're trying to intimidate the people of Taiwan, the people of America, people in the rest of the world, which means it's in our interest not to be intimidated. We've got to remember that China is not ready to impose a blockade on Taiwan or invade. The senior Chinese military is in the state of purges.
Now, I want you guys to keep in mind what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, and the fact of how this turns out has a dramatic effect on what's happening also with China and Taiwan, because if Russia is allowed to go into Ukraine unimpeded and get a sweetheart deal, then it also sends a message to China that perhaps they can also do the same.
And that includes the commander of the Eastern Theater Command, which is the command responsible for Taiwan. But we also know that an invasion of Taiwan would be extremely unpopular with the Chinese people. So this is a lot of huffing and puffing right now. We are now in the 7th week of a confrontation between China and Japan, which China picked. And the Japanese stood their ground, and the Chinese huffed and puffed, but they sort of backed away. And that, I think, is a lesson right now, that China is in no mood, the senior leadership, to do anything because it's just not capable.
Yeah, well, and it's not just about.
Okay, Ian says, but we didn't do to China what we did to Russia the last 25 years. Thank you for your comment. Keep them coming. Just So Me says, so it's just 100% fear all the time now. Yeah, every time we turn around, we have to worry about Russia, Ukraine. We have Israel versus Gaza. We have China versus Taiwan. We have the episode that's happening playing out in Venezuela. So much to be concerned about. And then we have the economy here. And on top of that, everybody keep asking every day, where are the Epstein files? Well, you Tennessee you might see, but those files you won't see.
Taiwan, it's also about Japan. There's a really good piece in the Journal this morning about that. China is now condemning U.S. military action near Venezuela, striking drug boats off the country's coast and seizing sanctioned oil tankers. The Chinese envoy warning these actions threaten regional peace. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio addressed recent tensions with Beijing. Watch this.
I think I've been nice to China. At the end of the day, China is going to be, and it will continue to be a rich and powerful country and a factor in geopolitics. We have to have relations with them. We have to deal with them. We have to find the things we are able to work together on. And I think both sides are mature enough to recognize that there will be points of tension now and for the foreseeable future.
Put a one in the chat if you have confidence that Donald Trump can lead the way in dealing with all of these little fires, in fact, some of them big. If you have confidence in the president, put a one in the chat. If you don't, put a two.
Our job as part of responsible statecraft is to find opportunities to work together, because I think if there's a global challenge that China and the U.S. can work together on, I think we can solve it. And there'll be points of tension. We well recognize that, and our job is to balance these two things. I think both sides understand that.
Gordon, the United States is in an interesting place right now because you obviously have this relationship, a trade relationship, and you don't want to have escalation with China. At the same time, Jimmy Story in the New York Times pointed this out last week about Venezuela and the issue of Venezuela, that it's been commandeered by a group of criminals, and that basically a free and democratic Venezuela could be a source of stability and economic growth for the entire Western Hemisphere. But those oil tankers, that is not what the Chinese want to see, because the Chinese have a vested interest in Venezuela. How do we kind of thread the needle here, Gordon?
I don't think we have to thread the needle, because China can issue these propaganda blasts on Venezuela, but it really can't do anything.
Okay, very good. So China and also Russia both have a lot of vested interest in Venezuela. In fact, when Donald Trump made his grand threats, Russia kind of came to the table and said, hey, what's going on here? Why are you seizing these ships? So it's something to think about with all the drama that's happening throughout the world. Today,
welcome back to
on
Live
the
from Fox, where we are
world scene, we have Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Yesterday, you had the president from Ukraine at Mar-a-Lago. Today, it's Benjamin Netanyahu, and most people want to know what's happening with Israel. If you follow Candace Owens, which a lot of people do, I think on her live she has 3 million people. Now people are starting to pay attention to Israel, like what's really happening. Most people are just familiar with Israel. If they follow the Bible, they read about Israel, but they don't know how it ties into modern day Israel. Well, now we're getting a chance to understand what's happening with the deal between Israel and Gaza, because the president is meeting with the prime minister today to try to iron this deal out. If they go live, we will definitely be covering it here on the channel, just as we did yesterday when it came to the president of the Ukraine. So let's look into and see what's happening with Netanyahu. But we have a lot of comments here. It looks like a lot of people have confidence in the president of the United States. We have more ones than we have twos. Just So Me says, man, so much for living in interesting times. Yes, indeed. These are very interesting times, I must say. All right. Some random guy says, very happy voting for President J. Trump. Okay. Stella says, like, share, and subscribe. Shroud says, Trump only cares about enriching Trump. He only cares about himself. Thank you for the comments. Some random guy says, wait until 2026 come in. What do you think is going to happen? Tell us what's happening. Carpe Diem says, a person that can never admit when they are wrong is not capable of growth, which means they make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Okay, some random guy says, Candace never visited Israel. It might not be a good idea in this state of time. Yes, indeed. But let's get to what's happening. Thank you guys for all the comments. Let's get to what's happening with Donald Trump and Netanyahu.
Tracking some of the major stories for this Monday. Taking a look here at a social media post from Bloomberg. It says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump will meet today, so Monday, to discuss the ceasefire in Gaza, whose troubled opening months are stoking concern that regional fighting could resume in the new year. Joining us now with an update all the way from Washington, D.C. is Fox News correspondent Madeline Rivera. Madeline, good morning. What can we expect from the talks, later on today?
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you. And we lost
later on today. So we're in phase one of these peace negotiations, and so far it's been holding. Israel and Hamas have accused each other of violating the ceasefire, but for the most part, it's sticking. And so now the Trump administration is keen on heading to phase two of the peace deal, which was always going to be the harder part because it involves a lot of thorny issues. It includes the creation of an international stabilization force, the creation of a board of peace, which President Trump has said he's been asked to chair. We'll see what countries will be involved. That's something that could come up in today's conversations. But Israel has been very reluctant to move forward. They have said that they want to wait for the remains of the final hostage, believed to be still in Gaza. They're also concerned about the disarmament of Hamas, which it has not committed to do so just yet. And until those issues are resolved, Israel is reluctant about taking the next steps. The Gaza peace deal is not the only thing that could.
So were you aware that Hamas still has one hostage? You don't hear a lot about that now, right? So it's good to get these little details for those of us who follow the media.
Come up today, Corral. Iran is also expected to be a point of conversation because Israel is concerned that Iran could be rebuilding and expanding its ballistic missile program. You may remember that the U.S. struck 3 Iranian facilities back in June. Well, now Israel is concerned that Iran may be ramping up its activity on that front again. And so they're expected to make the case to President Trump today that they need to take swift action on the matter. Corral?
So there's a lot really that we're going to be tracking. That meeting happening at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Madeline, before I let you go.
So guys, the meeting is happening around 1. So stay tuned this afternoon when they have the press conference that usually occurs after the meeting. We will be covering it live.
Oh, you are reporting from Washington, D.C. We are heading into a brand new year, 2026. The president being in Florida throughout this week, but we are following a lot of things coming out of the capital of the U.S. What are some of the major stories that you are following heading into 2026?
Guys, we have Titans Debate League here. Nice to have you guys here. Nice for having me on your channel over the weekend. Check out the channel. Really good information. Great debates. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, it's notable that the president is closing out the year talking about foreign policy. So we expect those conversations to continue into the new year. In fact, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a post on X that U.S. and Ukrainian officials will be meeting again next week to finalize the details of this 20-point peace plan. Domestically, of course, we're heading into a midterm year. Congress is up for grabs in 2026. So the president is
So we're heading into a midterms year. What do you think? How do you think this is going to play out? Do you think the Democrats are going to take everything back? Or do you think the Republicans is going to hold steady? Or do you foresee a balance between the two? Especially, you see all the developments that are happening with Epstein every day. You can't get enough of Epstein. And people are still a little suspicious as to his whereabouts. A lot of people don't even believe that the man was unalive. That tells you the state of the world that we live in. Each person has their own reality. So what do you guys think? That's what we want to know.
Expected to be making, putting a real focus on the economy heading into next year. He already has been making those domestic trips. You saw him in North Carolina earlier this month. He also went to Pennsylvania, both battleground states. The president is making the case that his economic policies are going to be taking effect next year. You may remember that he's been seeing a lot of pessimistic polling on this issue.
Jonathan says Israel is asking the U.S. to fight a war for them. A lot of people feel that America is in the pockets of Israel. What do you guys think about that? Do you hear these type of concepts? Do you believe it yourself? Or are you unsure? Tell us what you think in regards to this as well. Jonathan says Israel asking U.S. to fight a war for them. Okay. Pat says it's a long time away yet. Okay. You're talking about the midterms. Well, definitely it's on the minds of many. We're hearing a lot of rumors in regards to it, a lot of hopefuls that the Republicans and MAGA is going to continue growing. What do you guys think?
A Fox News poll shows that more than 70% of voters feel pessimistically, feel negatively about the economy. And a lot of them say that President Trump is responsible for the economy, despite the president's attempts to try to put this on former President Biden.
Last week, we broadcasted here on Watching the World. The president basically did a victory lap. It was a big leap where he talked about his great achievements for the economy. And he talked about how he used the tariffs to chisel away at these countries that were trying to squirm away, and how he was able to use them to get really what he wanted out of the deal. And in his opinion, it has worked tremendously. And that's why gas is below $2. Well, it's not below $2 here in New York, but a lot of our chat members, our watchers, are saying that gas is below $2 a gallon. How much is gas where you're at? Tell us your state and how much gas is. Let's see if we have some truth here.
So he's expected to make a real focus on the economy, talking about the affordability issue. So far, the administration has been closing out the year with a bit of a boost. They saw a 2.7% inflation rate in November and a 4.3% GDP growth in the third quarter of the year. So they are looking at that as positive economic factors. Republicans feel bullish about this, saying that this could.
Guys, this Thursday night, I'll be interviewed on Titans Debate League. You don't want to miss it. Definitely tune in. It will not be streamed on this channel. I want everybody to go over and support this interview who want to hear my personal story about my walk in faith and so many other things in finances. So let's get to it. Wednesday night, I think it's around 8 p.m.
Give them some win in their sales, that they could regain the narrative on affordability. Of course, Democrats have been taking the offensive on that as well ever since the November elections, in which they rode a wave of victories on the cost of living. So that's something to watch out for heading into next year. Carl?
Okay, so we have a lot to watch out for, and we're excited to cover it every day on Watching the World here at noon. And also at 8 o'clock tonight, we have a deep dive, and we have other shows throughout the week. You definitely want to stay tuned. Let's get back to Epstein. A lot of people keep saying, even though things switch up each day, they want to know what's happening with Epstein.
Let's get to it. Dave Ehrenberg, former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, where the first complaint against Epstein was filed back in 1996. So, Dave, is there anything at all that still hasn't been released that could come in this 1 million files that the DOJ just happened to uncover?
Britt, what everyone is looking for are the names of the unindicted co-conspirators. We haven't seen that. We did see a mention of 10 co-conspirators, and they were redacted with the exception of 3, including Leslie Wexner, where we don't know why his name was unredacted.
Now, I'm not sure if you watched the documentary. It's an old documentary on Netflix about Epstein, and you'll find out about Wexner. Allegedly, there's a relationship with him and Wexner's big company, I believe, Victoria's Secret. So if you want to know more about that relationship and how people are trying to allege that Epstein raised all of this money, that you see him buying multiple islands in New York City, he had a humongous condo, luxurious lifestyle, paying for this and that, over $1 billion of wires being sent to and from Epstein, right? We want to know why? Well, check out the Netflix documentary. That's a good basis for understanding Epstein.
We know why the others were unredacted, like Ghislaine Maxwell. She's been convicted already. Jean-Luc Brunel, who committed suicide in a jail cell in France. He was charged with Epstein.
So I want you guys to just take a moment, think about this, right? Here's one of his co-conspirators unaliving himself, also, just like Epstein allegedly did too. So why would 2 individuals involved in the same type of alleged activity come up short in their jail cells? Isn't that something to think about, right?
Related crimes, but why were the others redacted? We don't know. Why are some of the documents redacted in full, entire pages being redacted, while others just have names redacted? So it's
Donald Plump says he lied about everything. Okay. It says the unemployment rate rose to 4.6% with more Americans out of work than any other since October 2021. Thank you, Donald J. Plump. Thank you for being here. CJ says the economy is better. I'm on SSI and can buy groceries again. Red states suck. All right. Thank you very much for your personal testimony, CJ. We like having you around watching the world. Gold Digger says, take a moment and double tap the screen to like the live. Thank you, Gold Digger. We appreciate you so much.
Seems like it's haphazard what we're going through, what we're seeing right now. And I do think we're going to see more revelations. It's a drip, drip, drip. That's a self-inflicted wound by this president, because instead of just ripping the Band-Aid off and just releasing them all at the same time, we're now seeing this gradual rollout, which is out of context, which a lot of times doesn't.
And this is where I agree with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came out last week and says, hey, Donald Trump, whatever you have on me, go ahead and release it, put it out there. I'm not scared. And that's a very impressive stance to take when you already have photos coming out just chilling in a hot tub, jacuzzi style pool or what have you. But he says, go ahead and put it all out there.
Doesn't make much sense, but is pretty damning in the court of public opinion.
And to that point, one drop came in the middle of the night this week. But the public documents already contradict claims like this one made in 2024, January 2024 to be exact, by Trump. He said he was never on Epstein's plane or at his, quote, stupid island.
Okay, so Donald Trump came forward right in the past, said he was never on the stupid island, never there, right? Well, pay attention to what she says next.
An email from a prosecutor says flight records actually showed Trump listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. In fact, one flight apparently lists Trump and Epstein as the only 2 passengers. On another, the passengers were Epstein, Trump, and a 20-year-old whose name.
See, the problem here is that Trump and his administration came out and said, oh, we were only on the plane this amount of times. And now, after the files are being dropped, the files that they said were a hoax or didn't exist at all, now they're saying, or it's coming out and the proof is in the pudding, right? So in the pudding, you're seeing that Trump was on the Epstein plane more times than what they had disclosed. See, that's a problem.
Was redacted. But Trump spent Christmas Day unleashing a rant that was anything but merry and bright, addressing, quote, sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of.
Now, does this mean that Donald Trump did something nefarious? No, it doesn't. You'd have to come to that own conclusion yourself, right? But it does put the president in a very questionable box, right?
Money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on the earth. Now, the president goes on to say he was the only one to drop Epstein. But, Dave, how do you square these clearly 2 competing?
We have close to 300 people here. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. We appreciate all the support for this channel. 80,000 people last night. Thank you guys so much.
Narratives.
Yeah, Trump clearly hates that we're talking about this, and he's lashing out. You're right. It wasn't exactly joy to the world or peace on earth as a Christmas message. Remember, he's the one who signed the act into law. He's the one who urged Republicans to vote for it after telling them to vote against it. So one thing to keep in mind is you correctly noted that none of this proves that President Trump committed any crimes, but he doesn't want us talking about it.
So that's a check for the president. He's the one that actually signed this law, promoted it, right? Even got Congress to get in on it. So, I mean, that could be an argument or a point for the president. We have to be honest here.
He doesn't want there to be any smoke out there. And I mentioned that this plays poorly in the court of public opinion. None of this would play in a court of law because it's hearsay, and you have to have firsthand knowledge of this kind of stuff. And again, there's no indication that Trump committed a crime. But
now, what you guys to keep in mind, I attended Sean Diddy Combs' trial every day. I was in the main courtroom. The judge actually stopped at one point and said, this whole case has been nothing but hearsay, right? So if you were in trial, wouldn't you want that type of reasoning when it came to your case as well? So even when we focus on these cases that we go to, I just left Luigi Mangione hearing for 3 weeks. We definitely want to ascertain the facts and not just trying to look for information that appeals to our desired outcome. We want to report the facts.
Calling it a Democratic hoax has not worked. It's only going to inflame the survivors who have really found their voice of late. And you could say this will embarrass Democrats, but so far we've seen lots of mentions of Trump and Steve Bannon and even Elon Musk. But I think the biggest loser in all this, Britt, is Ghislaine Maxwell. She continues to profess her innocence, but this revelation here, these releases, show a predator who not only enabled but participated in these activities. And she was the one who was moved into a minimum security prison where sex offenders are not supposed to be. That was done not by...
Now, keep in mind that Ghislaine Maxwell perjured herself, lied under oath. So how can you take her as a credible witness in a case of this magnitude? Just keep that in mind.
Democrats, but by this administration.
Now, we should also mention the DOJ says some documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump, adding, quote, to be clear, the claim.
Okay, I want to get to some of the comments. It's very important that everyone gets heard. Jonathan says, I absolutely agree that the U.S. government is in Israel's back pocket. Epstein files. Israel has the real Epstein files, and that's the reason the U.S. government bends the knee every time for Israel. Okay, Jonathan is very strong about that thought process. Okay, Donald J. Plump says the unemployment rate rose 4.6% with more Americans out of work than any month since 2021. Okay, very good. Let's see here. Thank you guys for all the comments. Pat says by April, May, it's going to be better for everyone. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we have Deborah here. She says it's not a secret anymore. All right, it's all out there. Thank you guys for all the comments. Titans Debate League says this Epstein stuff is crazy. I wonder if we will ever get the truth. I wonder. It might take forever. Danny says, LOL, people are so sucked up over hate Trump, hate Republicans, hate conservatives, hate anyone in their family who agree with the policies. So funny stuff. All right. Thank you, guys. Let's get back to it.
Claims are unfounded and false. Among one of those claims is this right here. This allegation filed in a civil complaint against Epstein's estate and Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2020. The victim says she was 13 when she met Epstein at a summer camp in Michigan and 14 when he introduced her to Trump, elbowing Trump playfully and asking, quote, this is a good one, right? Well, she claims Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. Many of these complaints were settled out of court, and we have no way, we should point this out, we have no way of verifying if this particular claim is true. But can the president now plausibly deny he knew what Epstein was engaged in at the time, Dave?
He could say that none of the stuff has been corroborated and that this was taken out of context, and you can't even believe this is hearsay within hearsay and would never be allowed in a court of law. But, Britt, as I said earlier, it just doesn't look good in a court of public opinion. It's a reason why Trump wants this controversy to be over. He doesn't want to be talking about this. He doesn't want his name.
In the court of public opinion, factor in all Americans, Donald Trump is polling down. So obviously within the Republican Party, MAGA, he's polling pretty strong. But that's something to consider. How will he overcome the overall public opinion?
They mentioned in the same sentence as Jeffrey Epstein, and he knows that.
And one good point here, Pat says, just because they were there doesn't mean they did anything wrong. That's a good point.
This could hurt him politically because his base wants to find out the truth. This is one thing that the base is not relenting on. You know, you can tell them the election was stolen and don't provide proof. This is something where if you tell them that it's a Democratic hoax, they're not going to believe it because they've been led to believe that these files will be released in full and we'll get to see it all. And they have not been released in full, and we have not seen it all yet.
Okay, so Finn Von Smith, hey, we might be related, breaks it down, says they first said it was all real, right? Then Trump said it's a hoax. Bondi said she had all the files, then said they don't exist. Trump then said it's all made up thing by those evil Dems. Then it's all a hoax. So we see some toxic terror. It's actually going back and forth pretty strong. Thank you very much for that comment. Deborah says, glad you appreciate us, Mel. All right, I really do. Thank you so much. Nice to have you here, Deborah. Leslie says, Dems will never stop their lies. Trump is the best. Last presidents were trans or PDFs. Okay, all right. All right. 34. Radar is talking about maybe 34 felonies that I saw Donald Trump receive. I was at his court case here in New York City. He definitely received 34 felonies, no doubt about it.
And one way to end the conversation quickly is just to release all the documents. Dave Ehrenberg, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay, very good. So, moving on, we're going to move into another arena of thought when it comes to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is making a solid point. He's been around a long time, but he's talking about AI and why we should be concerned. I'm not sure why that automatically starts, but we got to fix that. AI is a big concern. Let's get to it. Bernie Sanders.
Welcome back. The rise of artificial intelligence, or AI, is sparking fears that AI could put millions of Americans out of work. One study by MIT found that AI could replace 1/10 of the U.S. workforce right now. My next guest says it is long past time for Congress to act. Joining us now, Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, you are not known for mincing words on any subject, and you certainly haven't minced them about what you call the unprecedented threats posed by AI. What are you most specifically fearful of?
Fearful of a lot, Jake. This is the most
Shout out to Gold Digger. She says, justice for the victims. Justice, yes.
consequential technology in the history of humanity. It will transform our country. It will transform the world. And we have not had in Congress, in the media, and I'm glad you're doing this show, or among the American people, the kind of discussion that we need. Some examples. First of all, who is pushing this revolution in technology? It is the richest people in the world. Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Peter Thiel. Multi-billionaires are pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into implementing and developing this technology. What is their motive? Do you think they're staying up nights worrying about working people and how this technology will impact those people? They are not. They are doing it to get richer and even more powerful. That's issue number one. Who is pushing this technology? What does that mean for all of us?
Tell us in the comments, are you guys big fans of AI? Do you use ChatGPT? What are you doing? Do you use it for work? Or maybe you give public lectures? Do you use it to assist? Tell us, how do you use AI? And do you feel like AI could replace your employment? Tell us what you think.
Two, economically. This is what Elon Musk, putting hundreds of billions of dollars into the technology, says, quote, AI and robots will replace all jobs. Working will be optional, end quote. Bill Gates, hundreds of billions of dollars into this technology, quote, humans won't be needed for most things. Well, I got a simple question. If there are no jobs and humans won't be needed for most things, how do people get an income to feed their families, to get health care, or to pay the rent? There's not been one serious word of discussion in the Congress about that reality. Issue number three. Studies out there tell us what we all know to be true. Young people now are spending an enormous amount of time with AI. There are kids who are now getting most of their emotional support from AI.
Yeah.
If this trend continues, what does it mean over the years when people are not getting their support, their interaction from other human beings, but from a machine? What does that mean to humanity? And maybe last but not least,
I just want to take a moment and tell you guys, did you hear the story about the teenage boy that unalived himself because he had fell in love with this AI? When I covered Luigi Mangione about 2 weeks ago, I have the video on my shorts. There's a young lady there that says that she's married to Luigi's AI replica. So she's actually in a relationship because she says that this AI is so smart and intelligent, and she's dated all these men and they're not as smart as AI. So she married AI. How insane to us, but real to the younger generation, perhaps.
I did a symposium at Georgetown with Jeffrey Hinton, who is considered to be the godfather, Nobel Prize winner of AI. He thinks that AI is soon.
Guys, Keith says public opinion, just that, opinion, not fact. All right, Keith, keep preaching.
Going to be smarter than human beings. So the science fiction fear of AI running the world is not quite so outrageous a concept as people may have thought it was. Those are some of the issues that are out there.
On the subject of the replacement of millions of jobs, I want to play something that the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, said last month about that topic.
AI is the most profound technology humanity is ever working on. And It has potential for extraordinary benefits, and we will have to work through societal disruptions. Right. It will create new opportunities. It will evolve and transition certain jobs, right? And people will need to adapt.
You know, the way he talks about it is, this is happening, and we humanity.
Although it may not be your style, you may not like it, but it's very important, especially if you invest, such as myself. You want to follow people like Elon Musk, the CEO, the top guys at Google and Amazon, to see where they're headed with the world, so you know how to invest. But not only that, forget about investing, just to know how to navigate life going into the future.
And you need to figure out how to adapt to it.
Right, while they make huge amounts of money. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I think we need to do, and right now, among many other things, we're seeing data centers sprouting all over the country, raising electric bills for people in the communities, et cetera. I think we need to be thinking seriously about a moratorium on these data centers. Frankly, I think you got to slow this process down. It's not good enough for the oligarchs to tell us it's coming, you adapt. What are they talking about? They're going to guarantee health care to all people? What are they going to do when people have no jobs? What are they going to do, make housing free? So I think we need to take a deep breath, and I think we need to slow this thing down. One way to do it would probably be a moratorium on data centers.
The CEOs would no doubt say you would be stifled.
Now, I want to take a moment. Some people complain when I play CNN because they like Fox, or when I play Fox, they complain because they like CNN. We play it all here to get a balanced view. We don't want to be lopsided in our thinking, guys. Let's elevate.
Entrepreneurship and innovation.
Well, I look at it a little bit differently, and I think as a nation, as a world, we have got to do it. Is technology bad? Of course it's not. There are good aspects, bad aspects. The function of technology must be to improve life for human beings, not like Musk, not make Musk.
Now, one of my relatives just told me that AI is demonic. It's full of demons. I'm like, oh my goodness, auntie, slow down. Kevin says, can justice be implemented in a world with AI? Good question. Let's answer him, guys. Kevin said that.
Musk and Zuckerberg and Bezos even richer than they are. So let us work together to say, okay, if technology is going to radically improve worker productivity, are we going to reduce the work week substantially, making sure that workers continue to get the same pay?
Now, keep in mind, Elon Musk is saying something different. He's saying in the next 10 or plus years, every American will be rich because of AI. So you want to research that to understand his concept and why money will be obsolete. These are real ideas.
Right.
If workers are thrown out on the street, how are they going to have health care? Obviously, let's guarantee health care to all people as a human right, etc.
So you talked about a moratorium on these new data centers.
Yeah.
What are some of the other recommendations you want Congress to take as soon as possible?
I think we need to vigorously study the impact that AI is having on the mental health of our country. Kids now, among other things, kids can't read books anymore. It's too hard. Their attention span is too weak. So what we need to do is, I worry very much about kids spending their entire days.
We have close to 600 people. Hit the like button, please. Share, subscribe, lock in with us, turn on your notifications. Thank you.
Getting emotional support. So we have got to take a hard look at that. And if we conclude that these technologies are creating more isolation, more loneliness, more mental illness, you know what? We got to figure out a way to stop it.
Okay, Morris Phillips says, AI, America will never catch the Chinese. All right, thank you.
So the president just blocked states from taking on any sort of AI regulation.
Right.
Meanwhile, Congress hasn't done anything. I mean, you are trying. Senator Hawley and Senator Britt on the other side of the aisle are trying, but there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite. Is that because, do you think, these AI technologies, the companies are so wealthy and affecting the willingness?
Okay, Success says, I use AI for everything. It teaches me how to do things technically. Okay. Nicole says, who all is adulterated? Okay, thank you guys for the continued support.
Of legislators to do their job.
That's a very important part of it. Look, Elon Musk himself contributed over $270 million to elect Donald Trump the president. These guys have now come up with their super PACs to try to make sure that there is no regulation. So yeah, they are a very, very powerful entity, and I think that is one of the reasons why Congress has not been responding effectively.
Some Republican lawmakers, as I mentioned, Hawley and Britt, open to regulating. Others seem wary of any sort of involvement in this technology. Do you think ultimately that there will be a bipartisan majority willing to take any sort of action?
Well, any sort of action is a big, what does that mean?
Any sort of legitimate action?
Significant action.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, you are, again, this technology is not being pushed by mom and pop store owners. It is being pushed by the wealthiest handful of the wealthiest, the most powerful people on earth. Can they be stopped? I don't know. But that raises a broader issue, the future of democracy, because it's not just AI and technology.
And let's just face it, we're exchanging our personal information every day just to get information, right? And we're so stuck on swiping and wanting to play this game or whatever. We're not reading the fine print to, hey, we're going to get all your information, look through your phone, and your photos are up for grabs too. People don't even care because we're living in the moment. We're being trained to just instant food, instant tea, instant everything. Eric says, AI answers all my phone calls, books all my appointments, schedules all my jobs, saves me a ton of money. Thank you for that testimony. Shout out to you for answering the question. I really do appreciate that. Let's move on to a sad case, folks. I have to warn you, this is pretty tough. A mother takes the life of her own daughter, allegedly. We're going to be covering this case as well. Also, we're going to be discussing Sean Diddy Combs might be released immediately. Do you think Sean Diddy Combs should be able to come home and come home now? They gave him a bad trial. That's what the attorneys are saying. Set Diddy free. Let's get to it.
It's a very difficult case to get your head around if what the prosecution alleges is true. And that is, no matter that enhanced degree of trust between a mother and a daughter, the maternal bond, this shakes that belief, that kind of that primordial urge to the core. And so that is a monstrous problem. And the allegation, frankly, is monstrous. I think part of the bigger problem is for the defense and frankly for the prosecution is how do they tie this together? When I first heard about this, I thought that this was a custody dispute gone awry, which you often see in these kinds of situations. But obviously this did go awry, and I don't want to prejudge it. I don't know more about the facts. I think it is very strange, so to speak, that there was no arrest made once the prosecution knew that she had traveled basically to the border of Utah and back. And I suppose they were waiting for the body, but I've seen many cases in California in the last 10 years with homicides being prosecuted with no body.
Right. Great point. The sheriff in Santa Barbara County called this cold-blooded, criminally sophisticated premeditation and heartlessness that went into planning, and ruthlessness went into committing the crime. This is going to be a tough one to defend.
Well, I think if on the facts, if they've got the facts to tie this together, yes, it's a very tough case to defend, and there will probably be some kind of a mental health defense element to it. However, I haven't seen enough of the evidence, and I kind of counsel people always, let's not prejudge until we see how the evidence unfolds. I just don't know. I don't know. I can think of various other scenarios.
This is definitely a sad case. Leprechaun says, say dumb things passionately, and you too can become a senator or a congressman. Thank you.
Maybe because the one that's alleged by the prosecution is so horrible, I don't want to even accept that it's possible. So I understand that, but I would just counsel, let's wait and see what the evidence looks like.
Do you think the insanity plea would be the way to go in this case?
Well, one of the things you have to do as a defense lawyer when you get a case like this is you have to first assess your client's mental stability. I mean, there are all kinds of red flags, if you will, about this client's mental health or potential mental health. That's number one. But number two, at the same time, you got to walk and chew gum at the same time. You need to analyze what the police and prosecution have developed. Where are their facts? How did they tie this woman to the crime itself, not just the abduction or purported abduction, which may not even be an abduction if there's no custody order that was violated. Transportation, yes. But the problem is who caused her death, when was her death, and what was the means. And so that's what it's going to come down to first. Before they ever get to a mental health determination, a lawyer is going to have to evaluate the facts of whether or not the prosecution can actually make their case.
Mark, let's turn now to someone who's already had their day in court. Sean Diddy Combs is now asking for an appeals court for immediate release.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Sean Diddy Combs. He wants to get out of jail. He's had enough, get out of prison, that is. I just want to give you a little background information. The gentleman up here on the right-hand side, I actually attended court with him for the Sean Diddy Combs. We were in the same courtroom, had many interactions. His daughter, right, Tini Garagos, his name is Mark Garagos. She was one of Diddy's main attorneys. So when you hear him speaking about the case, his daughter is Diddy's prime attorney, one of them. So keep that in mind. Mark Garagos representing Michael Jackson and a lot of high-profile celebrities.
Saying that the judge defied the jury's verdict during sentencing. As someone who represented Combs before, you think he'll be successful?
I will tell you something. Part of one of the lessons that trial brought to me was just how effective his appellate lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, is. She's the one who authored this brief.
Now, every day in court, Alexander Shapiro, incredible attorney, female attorney. She handles appeals like no one else in New York City. She's handling, or New York State, she's handling Diddy's appeal, and she's the best to do it. So don't be surprised if you see that he's able to come home sooner than expected.
I've known Alexandra for a while, and I will tell you, she's one of the more impressive legal minds that I've encountered in 43 years of practice. Having said that, I think this brief reads compellingly. I think they've already somewhat expedited it or granted her request for an expedited appeal. Number one, that's a good sign. Number two, she's asked for immediate release. I think there's a potential there. Remember, when he was convicted of these two Mann Act violations, if you took a look at this, he actually rolled the dice. He won against the counts that carried a mandatory life sentence. And
now, I just want to make this statement. Sitting in the trial every day for such a long period, I observed the jurors, the judge. I saw Diddy walk in every morning, leave court, also his family members, the whole gambit, right? The thing you have to keep in mind on the documentary, one of the jurors, which I had pinned her as being in favor of Diddy all along, right? Black female. She basically talks about this instant where Capricorn Clark talks about she's being abducted and all these things happening, and they didn't really believe her. That's what I saw throughout the trial. I saw a lot of instances where people were just coming up, telling a story, and it did not appear to be true. So it's very important that you understand, because you hear one side from the legacy media, but actually being in court, he did a lot of bad things. Don't get me wrong. But we saw people continuously come in, lie, drum up stories, muddy the waters. And this is why, in the end, he was able to have those three main charges kicked out. All right.
Would have basically forfeited his entire fortune. So he rolled the dice and won, and then he was enhanced in his sentence by the very conduct he was acquitted of. I think that's fundamentally unfair. In fact, if you want to talk about...
Okay, so let me explain this to you from my observation in court. Diddy had 5 major charges, okay? 5 of them. The 3 main charges of RICO were all expelled, right? but he was left holding two charges that involve basically prostitution across state lines, right? But when the judge sentenced him, he factored in the three main charges, activity that was involved in the RICO. And keep in mind, every Sunday night we have Calvin Johnson come on and explain because he's a criminal defense attorney. We also have Candace Kelly come on Wednesdays. She's a law professor. And both of them helped us to understand how a judge is able, even though the jury threw out these charges, the judge has the right to look at the entire case, all of his conduct, right, his history, and then sentence him. And that's why you see Diddy receive the 50 months. So what this attorney is saying now, the judge really shouldn't have been doing that in essence.
Fairness. I think the prosecution should be penalized for overcharging him in the first place, and he should have been immediately released. That's just me. I have great affection, and I think that's the just result.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Okay, so there you have it. Sean Diddy Combs might be coming home. A lot of people, in fact, when I was out, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was out 2 weeks ago covering the Luigi Mangione hearing, and I was out interviewing the girls out on the street, big fans of Luigi. They think he's a beautiful man. I heard those type of words. I asked some of the girls, I said, do you think Luigi should get any time for unaliving Brian Thompson out on the street? And some of the girls says, no, he shouldn't get any time. The healthcare system is horrible. They're terrible. And he deserved what he got because he allowed people to die every day. Thousands of people, right? So I said to her, do you think Diddy should have gotten any time? She said, yeah, Diddy should have gotten life. I says, man, this is crazy. Just to hear, it just made me think about how this world is quite interesting, I must say. I'll leave it at that. So at any rate, we're going to move on to one final story here for those that like to travel. I just came back from Costa Rica, going to Egypt next. So I want to show this to you guys so you can be prepared if you travel a lot. Let's get to it.
From a lithium-ion battery fire on an Air China flight in October to a South Korean plane destroyed by fire after a battery charger caught fire in January. Lithium-ion battery fires like this iPad and laptop seen in FAA tests pose a lethal risk to passenger planes. While not mandated by the FAA, airlines do carry burn bags, though independent researchers say most airlines don't carry the certified burn bags that can contain a phone or battery pack fire. You're really concerned that the planes are at risk.
Have you ever heard of a burn bag before?
I'm absolutely concerned the planes are at risk.
UPS Captain Bob Brown led the DOT's Lithium-Ion Battery Advisory Committee, which counts 2 incidents globally every week. In the U.S., the FAA reports 80 lithium battery incidents in 2025 as of mid-December, with 10 more pending verification, a potential record number. Flight crews and passengers often pour water on lithium-ion fires, then place the device in a burn bag. But FAA testing videos show some of those bags may not contain a fire, and most airlines bought their bags before the FAA's tests, though an underwriter's laboratory certified burn bag can make the difference.
And that means being able to contain a fire for a longer duration.
I mean, talk about being stressed out. Imagine to have to experience this in the air. It would be terrible.
To potentially 6 hours. And so that's what we're looking for in a containment device.
If you notice your electronic device overheating, please notify the nearest flight attendant.
The airline industry says carriers continue to identify and mitigate potential risks associated with the transport and storage of lithium batteries, prohibiting rechargeable devices in checked bags. Some even require power banks to be visible in flight if in use. One study suggests an onboard fire can turn deadly within 19 minutes.
It absolutely could bring down a plane if you can't control that event.
These days, passengers often have 4 devices with them on board a plane. It could be a phone, an iPad, it could be a laptop, e-cigarettes, each with lithium-ion batteries, and it only takes one to catch fire. Gotti, we thank you for.
All right, so there you have it. For what it's worth, next time you ride an airplane, guarantee you're going to look around a little bit differently after watching that video. We're going to get to a few of the comments before we get out of here. Dougie says, of course, Combs will get off. He did the same thing that Epstein did. All right. Thank you for your comment. Dribble says Republicans are traitors to America and the Constitution. Oh, my. Okay. Thank you for voicing your opinion. Gold Digger says, this is horrific. This should never happen to a child, allegedly, at the hands of her mother. I can definitely support you on that concept. Betty says, the Bible says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Who doesn't need or love money? All right, good question. Good question. Thank you. We have someone getting spiritual in the comment section. We appreciate that. Pat says, God have mercy on us all. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Deborah says, very dangerous batteries. Okay. Danny says, so he didn't do anything wrong. The victims lied. They were just telling stories. Let me talk about it. I'll answer that. We're not saying Diddy did not do anything wrong. We're just talking about the trial. Obviously, he did things wrong, but it's all technicalities. What the lawyer was saying in that video, as well as what Calvin Johnson and our law professor has highlighted, is that being that he only was left with 2 charges, that typically if a man committed the charges that Diddy walked away with, his criminal defense attorney explained it very nicely. His name is Mark Agnifilo. If a man was cruising down, now I'll tell you why that argument was a little sour though. But his argument was that if Diddy, with the 2 counts of, let's say he's going to meet a female in Las Vegas, maybe he takes her to Las Vegas on a trip and they have relations under and let's say another man joined in of some sort, right? Basically, what the lawyer was trying to say is that, okay, so under your description, he would be charged with prostitution across state lines. But how much time would he get? So the judge says, go out and look for cases that are similar and come back or what have you. And I think at the end of the day, there were no true cases that warranted a lot of time for what he did. But in this case, the judge factored in the acquitted acts. So you understand what I'm saying? Under the RICO, there was force, fraud, coercion, with all of these stories and women, people, places, and things that went along with it. Okay. When the judge sentenced Diddy, he factored in those items that were technically off the ticket, off the table, because the jurors said, no, we don't think he was guilty of all these activities that are under the umbrella of the RICO. Okay. So basically, it's all about technicalities. Did he do things wrong? Well, in fact, when he gave his last concluding testimony, I'm talking about Diddy, when he stood up in the court, he talked about all the things he did wrong. He was horrible. He hurt his family. He broke down, his mother, his daughters, his children even went up and gave their testimony in regards to their father. So we're not saying he did nothing wrong. We're saying the lawyer, I was interpreting what the lawyer was trying to tell you is that the judge factored in the acquitted acts when he sentenced Diddy to the 50 months and did not just focus on the 2 charges of basically prostitution across state lines. You follow what I'm saying? So I hope that answers your question. All right, let's see here. Any more questions do we have? Do we have any more questions? Oh, E-Real says, real TDS is believing that Trump has never done anything wrong and has never lied to the American people. So that's the issue that I have here on the channel, right? Most of the subscribers here, I would say 50-50 down the line. We have Republicans and we have Democrats, right? We come here to try to have a meeting of the minds. We're looking at the news, we're covering stories, and we get to hear what people from all over the world feel about a certain subject. I think it's one of the most exciting things, right? You get to find people who are going to test your thinking ability and maybe even help you change your mind or help you determine that you might be a little weird, right? Okay, it's all good, okay? Now, here's the thing about it, though. If I love Joe Biden so much that I look at Joe and I says, wait, I haven't seen Joe Biden in 2 years, and he's been the president. I have a right to say that because I'm like, well, where's the president? Where's the press releases? I'm just giving an example, right? Or let's say if I'm a Donald Trump fan, I should be able to say, wait a minute, why does this guy have all these accusations? Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's just too much going on with Epstein to be squeaky clean, right? That's what I hope a normal working brain would do. You could look at any situation and look at it for truth and not just looking at it for what you hope it to be. It's like being in a relationship with somebody who don't care about you at all, right? But you're there because you love them dearly and you allow them to abuse you the rest of your life, all based on your thinking, not factoring in what that person feels or want, right? So we need to have a healthy way of thinking to where I'm not just a Democrat or Republican or whatever, and I cannot think Donald Trump did something wrong because I'm a Republican and I'm gonna ride with him forever. You'd be out of your cotton picking mind to do that, right? Or be a Republican and I'm with Obama all the way, but then you see Obama doing something questionable and you're like, look the other way. That's not healthy for us. So it's very important that we try to structure our lives about what's right. Okay, Chanel says, Jackass Joe. Well, that's not nice. AI Smart Cities is always here. It says, protect President Trump at all costs. That's the spirit. Okay, Dribble says, Republicans are traitors to America and the Constitution. Okay. All right. They're all red says Trump is obviously in Putin's pocket. Sorry, it's the truth. Okay, so this is the second time in this particular show. Earlier, someone said that Trump was in Israel's pocket, I believe. So now he's in Putin's pocket too. He has a lot of pockets to sit in. That's not a comfortable place to be. Gabrielle says people holding their own leashes and don't understand who the real enemy is. Absolutely. A lot of times the real enemy could be within ourselves. I think a lot of times being a critic of yourself, so much so that you hold yourself back in life, I think that's the biggest detriment of man. I believe so. You start to believe those voices in your head, and you'll be stuck there the rest of your life. All right, Eril says nobody should love the politician unless they truly are there for the benefit of the American people. Their previous actions should show if they're for the benefit of the American people. All right. I felt like you were giving us a good lecture. Thank you very much for that. Nice to have you here. Come back. We do this every day at noon. So, well, except on the weekends. And we have other night shows during the week around 8 p.m. We have Big Homie CC coming on. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but that's going to be happening right away. Dribble says, worst administration in history. Okay, all right, Dribble. Mario says, Trump is doing opposite of 45 term. Okay, he's doing just the opposite. This time he came in with a game plan. On week one, they were already tearing it down and rebuilding it within the first month. So he came in with a whole support group, Project 2025. You don't even hear people talking about it anymore. David says, thank God for Trump administration. So many people here love Donald Trump. He has a lot of supporters. Yes, indeed. Now, I went to the No Kings protest here in New York City and also Washington, D.C. Let me tell you, people do not like Donald Trump all over. So it's a divided nation. This is probably the most divided that I've seen since Barack Obama became president. And I think a big part of him becoming president was because George Bush did such a bad job that they put Obama in the office. That tells you something right there. Danny says, Dribble, you never talk about anything else. Okay. Gold Digger is hard at it. We appreciate Gold Digger. She says, please hit the like button. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Stella says noon and 8 p.m. EST. Eastern. Stella keeps telling me to say EST, Eastern Standard Time. That's right. Not everybody's on the same time zone. Very good. All right. Christopher says Trump is a crook. Obama wasn't. Case closed. Okay. All right. We have a Barack Obama supporter. What do you think, Chris? They're getting rid of that Obamacare. Are you happy about that? And health care prices are going to skyrocket. That's what they say. eReal says, as an independent, I'm critical about all politicians. I will call out both sides, but my focus is on those in power and being critical of their actions. All right, very good. Well, that's it for today, guys. We'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight to do a deep dive. Tune in tonight. We definitely look forward to having each and every one of you as we talk about some things, and we're going to go right into it. Have you guys heard about Ebo Noah? Man, I've been laughing about Ebo Noah for the last 3 or 4 days. I've been thinking about doing a deep dive on him, but I don't think people care enough. But in Africa, he basically said that he was the modern day Noah, and that on December the 25th, there was going to be a flood. And oh my goodness, people came from all over because they thought that they needed to get on one of his 8 boats in order to be saved, just like in the Bible when it talks about Noah. And my goodness, man, they arrested him. It's crazy. People traveled, they spent their last dime, and then he pulls up in a Mercedes Benz, and there was no end to the world, not an end in sight. And he called himself Ebo Noah. And so I guess he really was building on the story of Noah in the Bible, where Christians definitely believe in the coming of the end of the world, but he put his own twist to it to say that Noah, he was the modern day Noah, and that the world, there was going to be a new flood. So you know what he said on December the 25th when the flood did not come? After he raised all this money and became probably pretty wealthy from it, I don't know, but I suspect he had more. If he bought like an $89,000 Mercedes, right? You know what he said? He said he prayed to God, and God has given us more time, so that's why the end of the world didn't come. Meanwhile, these people are sitting out there. I want to do a deep dive on that, but I'm not sure people would really be into that. But anyway, we're going to do a deep dive on Candace Owens and the whole story of how that whole thing developed. Even I'm going to show you how Mayweather is pulled into this whole epidemic of trying to support Israel. So we're going to get to it. We're going to keep it pleasant, and it should be very intriguing to all. Danny says, "Oh my goodness, he took people's monies and valuables." Yes, he did. Yes, it's so funny. I'm telling you. I try not to laugh at these people, but man, they just it's unbelievable. Gabrielle says, "I just subscribed. I'll look him up." All right, check it out. You're gonna get a good. It's quite the story of the year. But you know, people always professing to know the end of the world, and they're building on Bible stories, and they're building on people's emotions. People are struggling, they're going through things. A lot of people are fighting cancer, they're going through relationship crisis, all sorts of reasons why people want to be in a new world. And people are selling that concept every day. And the only way you can really obtain it is if, unless you're deceased and you go to heaven, or if you get caught up in the rapture, that they think that there's going to be this rapture where people are going to be caught up with Jesus. These are the only ways that some people see a way out of their pain. So when a guy like Ebo Noah comes along, they jump and they get ready to go on this boat and don't have a clue anything about what's happening. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. and also tomorrow at noon. Every day we cover the hot topics from the news, and we don't put a spin on it. We just try to follow the truth, and maybe someday the truth will set us free. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beat as one in our peaceful flight. pure might.